thought I'd show you this. This is a game that ended in a draw. And how it ended in a draw. So a bit of a Columbo. You know the ending, you know the murder, but you don't know who committed it. We've got this knight here. I'm not going to do Columbo today. Or am I? Well, what this is, okay, this is the D file opening, which is always a super hyper aggressive opening to open on the D file, and I had already had quite a few players beat me that day, today. So I opened with Alekine's defense, which is this knight move, which is not seen that often, but the thing about Alekine's defense, I used to play it a lot. But one of the good things about it is it leads to unusual positions, and that's got a system or whatever, it's fucks them up. So let's see if this punk feels lucky. He comes out with, he tries to be a bit unusual, a bit funky, and come back with something similar. And now I can put my D pawn forward, basically saying I'm prepared to be as aggressive as he is. And I'm not going to play defensively. Usually when I've lost a lot of games, I play a madly defensive game. I play what I call my fortress defense. You'll find lots of examples of it here, the fortress defense, which is very, very effective. It's a hyper defensive opening that I've sort of creation. Well, it might have a name. There might be a real one in the chess book somewhere. But today I'm saying I'm as aggressive as you are. Just because I've got the black pieces doesn't mean I can't be aggressive too. Okay, so we've got opposite knights, and now this knight comes out. We could have made it a 4 knights game, I suppose, with the D pawns, but instead I think I need to castle, and I see the opportunity to castle pretty quick here by doing a fianchet check on the king's side with the wrong colour of pawn, really, because, well, normally it's nice to fianchet with the pawns of one colour, so in this case the light coloured squares, and then have your main thrust coming out in a different colour, like a Sicilian, where you have like your main pawns would be coming out with your king pawn, and they'd be on black, and Cheto bit would be on the light squares. That's how I think it. I think it should work like that normally, but I don't know why I think that. So today we did it different. We did all of our pawns onto the light squares. Now this actually worked out to be very, very good for me, because he comes out here, he gets ready to castle. I just added another defender to this pawn quickly, because there's no hurry to carry with this bishop if I have to. And he brings out another bishop. I put my queen here so that why not get the quantum up early? If I castle, I'm losing a move, so and possibly start to mess with the e4 square. Get the quantum good for me there, so that at some point I can make this move. So we get to here, and is he going to take? And no, he's far too sophisticated to just take that, so that's nice. It's nice to know you're playing against someone sophisticated. Incidentally, this is a German player, a expert player, so that means they're rated over 2000. I think I'm at 1833 at the moment. So here we are, just adding an extra one to here, because the dimension happens up here, then obviously, like that, then obviously I might end up losing a defender of this pawn here. So just defended it again, because it cost me nothing to defend it again there. But you'll notice how all my pawns are suddenly going onto the light squares. I actually didn't really notice it at this point, how they were all coming onto the light squares. So why does the queen move here? Just to cover again that e4 square, but I did realise that he could attack me here, and I thought, okay, then do so. I will begin my attack, you see, because I get to take a bishop to start with. He takes the queen. I take his queen. He takes a bishop. I come in here and his knight can't actually escape. So he can take my bishop.
Check.
Or he can do another check first. I can take it. He can take it. And now that's the end of the opening, really. Well, I think castles. I move this rook. Sorry. I move this knight over here, so my knights are covering in the middle and covering each other.
Queenside castle in.
Castles, and that really is sort of the opening done. But now look at what's happened. The upshot of all that is that he has a dark coloured, and almost all my pawns are on light coloured squares, which is exactly what you want. If your opponent only has one bishop left, ideally you want all your pawns to be on the exact opposite colour, because it means he can't attack anything. There's nothing for him to attack with. That bishop has no attack. And if you can get your king onto the light squares as well, then his rooks can't get through without sacrificing themselves. And the only piece he can do anything with is the knight. And the knight can also really, really struggle even if all your pawns are on the same colour square. Because it means that every alternate move, that knight is attacked. He has to get that knight so that every time it lands on a light coloured square, it's landing on a safe square. But you can see that's almost impossible, which means that that knight basically cannot get through this. It's a sort of like a fence to the knight. A pawn is all on one colour. So that's interesting to think about, that with the pawns all on one colour, firstly the bishop has no attack, except on the king, of course, because my king is on a dark square, but my king can choose to go on any colour. So the bishop has no attack, the rooks cannot get through, and the knight cannot get through. So I didn't see it at this point, but I think it already is becoming a drawn position. The one weakness I have is this little pawn here, sitting on its dark coloured square. And it is a very weak pawn. And you'll notice that his pawns are all good. And that was all because I had to take with the pawn above it, his knight. I had to recapture that knight. I had no choice. So that was clever of him to disrupt my structure like that. But my knights are nicely coordinated here, and it's time to move my king. I thought, if you're going to castle queenside, I'm going to darn well go queenside as well. I'm going to artificially castle queenside. Because you know, a lot of chess players, they do this thing, you castle queenside, so I castle kingside. You say potatoes and I say potatoes. And then I push on my... Now, that was a big classical game. There was a classical game where that happened, where one castles kingside and the other castles queenside, and then you just barry up the kingside. But a lot of people just do it automatically without thinking about the position and what the actual features of the position they're in are. And this is not... I don't think this is a position... There's not enough material left to be playing like that at this point. Anyway, I'm not saying that that is how he was playing. He knows that my king's stranded in the middle because I can't castle, because I've moved. Now look, he's trying to get his pawns onto light coloured squares so that he can mobilise this bishop. And I'm getting my king over to the queen side, as I say, because I think he's going to keep his pawns in front of his king. He's not going to want to move them just yet. He wants to keep his king safe, and if he does that, then it also keeps my king safe on the queen side. So there's an argument for going on this castling on the same side as your opponent and letting the battle happen away from both your kings. There's an argument for that too. So here now he decides to do kind of just that now, really. He pushes forward. He's still, as I say, keeping his pawns on that colour. And now he attacks the weak pawn. And this is basically forcing my king to pretty much hang around the middle now. So any ideas of sort of artificially castling have to be sort of scuppered now. I've got my rook here. You don't really want your rooks to have to defend pawns. Not with a knight kicking around and a bishop kicking around. And so this one comes here, and I have a square I can get back to. This is a nothing move. And now attacking his bishop. In fact, those pawns that he's now pushed onto the dark coloured squares are basically erasing those squares from his bishop's repertoire. So up we go. I've erased another square from his bishop's repertoire with that, but that was not the aim of that. The aim of that was to the bishop off that diagonal line, attacking that pawn. His knight comes to here, and luckily, thanks to him chasing my knight away earlier, I have this beautiful square here, and his knight really can't do anything. My knight is got both squares covered. So you see, he's limited. Okay, let's continue. He pushes forward here, and there's no reason for me to take that. Here, just getting onto a light coloured square so that his bishop is now basically neutered as far as my king is concerned. Also covering one of those two weak pawns. Now he advances here, and my king comes up to here, because I realise that actually he can't get his bishop now to check my king. He can't get it up there. It's going to be 3 moves, if anything, to try and check my king with that bishop, so I'll have plenty of warning. So now he pushes forward here, and back I go again. So now he has... Look how many more squares he has erased from his bishop's repertoire. So he tries to bring his king into the fray, and this is the move that he must have been dreading. Because as you see, he really can't afford to take that. If he takes, I'll be up here, and then the check is coming with my knight, or I can capture that pawn. Of other horror things. If he bypasses, then I've got check here, and after the king does whatever he does, probably best not to go on there, because that's going to limit his bishop again. Now his king is kind of... Well, the position is nicely locked up. There's nothing he can attack that knight with apart from his knight, and that's just going to waste moves. So check. There's no incentive to do anything with that pawn that I've moved forward. It sits there like that. And he decides to come in here, because it has now opened up that square for the bishop, attacking that weak pawn. But it doesn't mean much, really, does it? So I can't quite remember what this rook move was all about. I just think I was thinking in terms of if he takes here. Check. The rook's in the right file now for doing nasties of one kind or another. Anyway, he comes down here with his rook, so as to recapture that pawn should I take. But of course, why would I? I like it like that. And so I just moved my king, a wasted move. I offered him a draw. I offered him a draw at this point, and then I moved my king. And then he attacked my knight, and I just defended it here. And then he offered me a draw. Now, I think that was the right, and the draw, I accepted the draw. Look. I mean, even if he takes this, there's nothing anyone can really do. And in fact, his position is now weaker than mine, because just look at the structure. So anyway, I thought an interesting drawn position. As you see, all of my pawns are on the light coloured squares. And key to this was the defanged. And let's not forget also that after the king here, regardless what he does, I've got this move here as well, which means that even if he sort of blitzes his way through and tries to win my knight with a sort of double rook doubling up or something, then I've still got another knight to replace it with. So all is good. All is good in the world.